Eager loading is the opposite of lazy loading. So instead of loading the related entities on demand, we're going to load them upfront to prevent additional queries to the database. So back here in the example from the last lecture, we can solve this n+1 issue by eager loading all the courses and their authors. How do we do it? It's actually very easy. So here, context.courses, we use the include method, dot include. Now this method has two overloads. One takes a string, which is the one you see here. The other takes a lambda expression. So with this overload, this is how we use it. The course class has a property called author. So we specify that here. And with this, the query that Entity Framework generates will join the courses table with the authors table to eager load all the courses and their authors. Now this include method with a string parameter is what you see in a lot of examples on MSDN. And sadly, this is bad coding practices. One thing I don't understand about Microsoft is why they promote poor coding practices. This include method with a magic string shouldn't have been written in the first place. And then to make the matter worse, they teach how to use it. So a lot of beginners or intermediate developers who see these examples on MSDN, they assume these are best practices because they're written by Microsoft on MSDN. Now, what is the problem with this magic string? The problem is, if tomorrow I rename this author property to something like teacher or instructor, then this code is going to break. Entity Framework will not be able to eager load courses and their authors because there is no such a property called author. So if you see this in examples, please avoid it at all times. Now, in order to use the other include method that takes a lambda expression, you need to import a namespace called system.data.entity. So, using system.data.entity. With this, now we can get rid of this magic string and replace it with the lambda expression. So C, as in short for course, goes to c.author. Now with this lambda expression, if I rename this author property to something else like instructor, because this lambda expression is gonna be compiled, we're gonna get a compile time error. So let me show you this in practice. I go to the course class, and here's the author property. I'm gonna rename this to instructor. Now back to the program. See, we immediately get a compile time error here. Of course, this is a poor way of renaming properties. A better way is to use rename refactoring. So back here, I'm going to revert it back to author. I press F2 and change this to instructor. Now back to the program. Look, it's updated in my lambda expression. But with a magic string, this will not happen. All right, I'm just going to revert it back to author. Now let's run this application and see the query in SQL Profiler. Okay, here in SQL Profiler, I'm going to scroll down a little bit. And look, SQL batch starting. This is the query. Note that here we have a select from courses, and then there is an inner join with authors to select the author and the course together. So unlike the last lecture, we're not going to have 5 queries to get the courses and their authors. Now let me show you how to use eager loading with multiple levels. So imagine we want to load all courses with their authors. So context.courses, and here we use the include method to eager load the authors. So nothing new so far. But let's imagine each author also has an address, and we want to eager load that too. Since address is a single property, we can simply add that here. Now here is another example. Imagine we want to load all courses and their tags. So we start with context.courses, and here we use the include method to load the tags. But let's imagine each tag also has a moderator. So we want to eager load that too. Now the tricky part here is the tags property is a collection. So we cannot type tags.moderator because the tags collection doesn't have the moderator property. In this case, we need to use the select method to get access to a tag object. And then we reference the moderator property using a lambda expression. Similar to lazy loading, eager loading can be both a good thing and a bad thing if used inappropriately. When you eager load too many related objects using the include method, the generated SQL queries will get more and more complex. Plus, you will end up storing a lot of objects into memory that are not needed straight away. So at the end, you need to think like an engineer and decide when to use eager loading or lazy loading and how. There is also a third way to load related objects, which is called explicit loading, which can be useful in situations where you still need to eager load a lot of objects, but your queries are getting too complex. In the next lecture, we'll take a look at explicit loading. I hope you enjoyed this lecture, and thank you for watching.